Well, we meet again. You're welcome. Thank you. Charlie Greer podcast again. Today, we're going to talk about LA roommates. Now, this is going to be a series, man. I was there for 24 years and I had a lot of roommates. Um, and I'll tell you why you want to deal with a roommate besides, like, say you're thinking, like, hey, I want to live on my own, live by myself. But then these apartment buildings in LA, there's like a 500, 1,000 people. Then you're dealing with a lot of other bullshit. So it's best to, like the people the devil theory. Like, hey, at least I know this fool, and I can. And a lot of times I end up being friends. To this day, I've had people that they live here and there. We don't, we're online chatting or whatever. But yeah, LA roommates. Um, Yeah, would you rather have a roommate or live in a building where there's just all kinds of people pull the fire alarm at 3 in the morning? There's, shootings. I mean, it's best to have a standalone house too. You don't want to be in some of these, some of these buildings are fun. People party, whatever. When you're young, maybe you could deal with that. But you want like 50 radios going people's window. So I'd rather deal with like one person instead of like, and usually there's a property manager on site. And it's just like, hey, so LA roommates. When I first moved to LA, I actually crashed for like a week on my buddy's couch looking for, a place, either apartment or a roommate. Wanted to live in Hollywood proper, like in Hollywood. And this is before everything. It's like 98, like March of 98. This is before all the rent and everything went crazy. And I met a roommate who's from Atlanta. He's to this day, we're still, in touch. He's like a brother to me. And we had a little house. There was like 3 or 4 houses on the lot. We had the front house. And why we connected was he was from Atlanta, like the South. I am too. He was there doing creative stuff. He had a dog, like people that I have a dog. He had a dog. Our dogs loved each other. I miss his dog actually. He had a cool dog. And he musician, actor, all that stuff. And it was cheap. I think it was like 375. I think we paid 750 for a 2 bedroom, 1 bath. Again, it was a shack. I mean, it had roaches and all kind, connected right our beside the house. It was Valentino Park or whatever. It's the park where they have the Valentino statue, and about a block up is like Sunset Sound and that big church. It's Sunset. You'd walk up there. Sunset Sound is a legendary recording studio, and he and I had cool times. Again, when you're living with people and the craziness, we were dealing with people jump our fence and ask to use the shower. I mean, it was right in Hollywood, so there was crazy stuff going on. We rented the house to a Jan Michael Vincent film, or Jan Michael Vincent. We made good money. I met people. Matter of fact, down the block on the same street, Ben Harper, like the musician, he lived there at the time. I met my producer, and I met other people. Um, I don't know if I should say that, but it was June Street in Hollywood. So, again, a good roommate. But I thought that again, there was a lot of craziness going on in that neighborhood. Like it was next to the park. There's homeless people, So I was like, look, I'm just gonna find my own apartment away from uh, all the craziness of, especially at night, like sunsets, a block or two off Sunset. So there's people like, parking, doing crazy shit at night. And just, again, people jumping the fence. We had this yard with no grass. It was a tall fence, but yeah. So I moved into this building across from Paramount. And that kind of schooled me about, hey, man, there's all these people in the building. I didn't know that everybody's going to be crazy, the radios and this and that. You're dealing with even more. But man, I shouldn't have left. So I stayed there for about I don't know, 6 months to a year, maybe a little bit longer. Then I moved to Echo Park. I found a duplex, and Echo Park at the time was bad. So I'd rather, yeah, it was bad at the time. Now it's just all, And I lived in this duplex up on I lived off Alvarado on, is it Echo? I think it was Echo, right by the 101. It was cool. I had a little patio. Could see this Hollywood sign from my front door and windows. It used to be, God, what was her name? This actress. I think Amanda Plummer, is that her name? She was in like Pulp Fiction, but she had drawn some stuff on the wall, and I was like, "Don't touch it, it's Amanda Plummer." Okay, and it was bad. It was a bad neighborhood, and I didn't have a roommate at the time, but I had people crashing. I had a pull-out couch, and I had people coming from like to come to LA and stay. I had a couple friends that came out, and one stayed for a while, one stayed for just like a couple weeks. But the roommates, sometimes you get lucky and get like good roommates in Los Angeles. I would be forewarned though. You don't want, again, the worst roommates I had were people from California that had money, trust fund kids or inherited money and blew through it. A lot of times they had like alcohol, drug problems. And at first it wasn't, you don't see that kind of, they're on their best behavior. And they can pay rent. A lot of times they do pay rent on time, but it's this other crazy shit. A lot of times I wouldn't even be there. I'd come home from work or doing what I was doing, and there would be like a BB gun fight, or shooting BB guns in the house, ruin the walls, goodbye, $1,500 deposit, because they're renting for me. I always had it in my name. Everything's a lease in my name. So if somebody came in, I'd tell them like, dude, this is I don't own this house. Don't destroy it. But my worst roommate, and even though we kind of got along, I liked the guy, it's just I couldn't do. He'd get out and blackout drunks, blame other people for everything, and he'd been doing this for his whole life. I remember telling him when it first started off, like after about 3 or 4 months, he started slipping. And I go, and he's trying to blame me. I go, bro, I just met you. How can you, you've been. And then I found out he'd been in jail, got kicked out, and he was a trust fund kid. He was getting monthly. He's making more money than me, but he didn't know how to live. Like, man, he didn't really know how to cook. He ate at like 7-Eleven. I took him to the laundromat for the first time and taught him how to do laundry and like just, and his family had money, and you would have never known. He lived like he didn't necessarily have to work, but he'd keep, when he had a job, he stayed kind of sane. But then he'd lose it or whatever, and he would just go crazy. And crazy, like I wouldn't be there. Like I would go into Hollywood and be gone for like 10 hours and work in whatever I was doing. And come home again, BB gun fights in the, like, what do you mean? Yeah, you messed up what are you doing shooting BB guns now? There's BBs all over the floor. Man, my dog swallows those. Matter of fact, he was there for 2 years. I was there for 6. So the next 4 years, I was still finding BBs everywhere. I'd moved furniture and vacuumed and swept, and they were everywhere. What do you mean I can't shoot BBs? Ruined the wall. They were stuck in. I never could get off. I covered it up with So I'd come home and just like be in a good mood, then open the door. And one time he was like on the couch, almost passed out, and the gas was on. It hit me. I was like, whoa, what the hell? And it turned out, so this is what he would do. He would eat in the kitchen and lean against the stove, and he'd be drunk, whatever. His backside would be like moving around, and it would turn the gas on. And he kept doing it. So I had to take off the handles and put them in a drawer when I wanted to use the stove. I just took it. It's just like dealing with a baby. And he didn't get it. And somehow he'd always try to turn around like, it's your fault. Like, what the fuck? I wouldn't even hear you. Then he would sober up and apologize and buy some food or whatever. And it was like this routine of, and sometimes he would get like, he sabotaged the stove. He got in there and broke our stove, not the top, but not the range, but he went in there and cut a wire. He did it on the washing machine, the dryer. He did it on the water heater outside. We caught him. He was ossified, drunk, and a blackout. And like, what are you doing? And he was mad at something about, I don't know what it was, just destruction. And we actually caught him, me and the landlord. And he was like, should we call the cops? And it turned out he knew that his grandparents, my landlord was rich, and he knew his grandparents back then. Like, oh, let it slide, But I lost my deposit. And he got evicted. He got evicted. The landlord came over and gave him a chance of it. The cops came. It's just like he was barricaded in his room and just all this craziness. And so he left. And then a couple months later, I hadn't found a roommate. I was tired of paying the expensive rent. And he was begging me, and his friend, oh, he went to treatment twice. Let him move back in. So I did. And he seemed sober enough. He was like, oh, great. But he didn't have a car. And again, he's still getting money. He stayed sane when he had a job. He didn't really need to work. And he was about to, when his like grandmother was going to die, he was about to, and I think he's inherited money. But so he moved back in, and, can you help me? I'm looking for a job. Can you drive me around? I was like, sure, I'll drive you around, Arcadia, took him to the mall, took him down to like wherever he applied. And he got like 2 or 3 jobs. He got hired. So the end of that week, we were going to bed that night. I went to my room. He's like, thank you so much, Charlie. He's, oh my God. And I went to bed. And then about like 4 or 5 in the morning, I heard all this racket go out there, and he is blackout drunk. Somehow he went to the bar and he brought back all these peanuts. They're all over the floor. He can't even speak. I'm surprised he wasn't passed out, because he was like, he was, didn't go to the job. And so his father had paid the rent, or his family. And he was there that first week. And then the next morning, he's like, yeah, I'm just going to be a fuck up. I'm moving out in another month. Like, why did you beg to move back in? And then you're going to, so he just stayed drunk, stayed in his room. And I don't even know what, at one point he was living like in an RV on his dad's property. Like, again, the dude could have, done something with his life, and I've had roommates that were cool, that helped me record my music. We had like a recording studio in the living room, and you got to watch out. I put an ad out looking for, and this was right before I moved, maybe about a year and a half before I moved, looking for a roommate. And the people showed up. I had like 6 people showing up, like every half hour they'd come look, and I was going to pick. All of them were just crazy. I mean, you would not believe, hookers that were like, yeah, there's going to be guys coming and going from here. I'm a sex worker. You can't do, what the hell? And there's these weird things you got to sign. I don't even know if this is legal, but like in LA, you can't, there are no overnight guests. Only 2 people live there. Nobody living in the living room. You can't sublease, blah, blah, blah. So I'd always pass the buck on there, pull out my lease, say, hey, this is, don't kill the messenger. People showing up, yeah, I'm going to barricade myself in here. We're going to do all this. Like, what? Just construct it? No. So I realized, like, man, I don't want all these people showing up at my house. I'll meet them. And this is the last one that happened. A woman had called, and she seemed nice. Yeah, I want to look at the apartment, da, 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 da. Yeah, okay. I got like 6 people coming. And she texts, like, I'm outside. And I walk out there, and when I see, it's like a LA County social worker, whatever, with like, lanyards on and then a board, and with like the scariest, like, ex-con you've ever seen. As soon as I saw that, I went, man, I got to lean into this. I got to play. I can't go up there and go, oh, no, I'm not doing it, because they retaliate, prevent, How do I know he don't have all kinds of hefes of, whatever? But I was like, yeah, I played into, come on, man. What's your name? Knowing that it's like, man, there's not he had that walk, like he just got out, like in prison clothes, like, just, they had some kind of like, program. And she apologized. I'm sorry, I pulled the wool over your eye. I said, no, come look at the apartment. Then I had to use like reverse psychology. Like, oh yeah, I want you. Yeah, you'd be perfect. Come on, move on in. He's like, hey, don't tell me what now, man. And she's like, yeah, no, dude. And he, so I kind of used the Jedi mind trick, but I wanted to be cool with the guy. I didn't want, I've been in LA for 2, I know, yay. These little things can turn into like, loggerheads. You'll be in loggerheads. So we're walking out, and she gets a phone call and walks ahead, and he looks at me and goes, yeah, man, good for you, man. You good that you do that. If you would have been turned me away. And I go, no, man, I didn't know. I was just, you seem like a cool guy. We hit it off. I was still. And physically, he'd been in prison, so he probably had some hand play, stuff but I wasn't threatened by him. And he was an older guy. It was more like things he can, and I, but he was like, yeah, you're cool, man. I'm going to give you my number. All right. And then I was like, you sure you don't want to move? No, man, but you're cool, dude. Yeah, you're cool. So after that, I was like, I'm meeting people at the coffee shop, man. I'm vexing people. I don't want people to know I want to make sure that I know who's who and what and where. And it was still bad. Then and a roommate that had moved out uh, had went through, got like, and he's like a brother, you don't always get along with your brothers, and we also, our problem was we got, when they did the lockdown or whatever, we wouldn't seen that. Then for like 2 years, we were stuck in the house together. That's just gonna, we argued a bit. We got on each other's nerves, but he's not a bad guy. He's a sweetheart. And I consider him kind of like a brother, and we had fun. We used to jam. And of course there's like, but he left. And then within like a month or two, went through like 2 or 3 places. Like they were bad. They didn't like him. He had to sue a lady to get money. And so I was like, dude, you can come back here. I'd rather deal with you. And he did. He was there for another, I don't know, over a year, maybe 2 years. He's still there. When I left, it was like, hey, take over. I met, look, I moved. He just switched over to dude. And he did. They did. I'm thinking he's still there. He should be. I mean, the rent, it was rent control. And it was still, right before I left, they raised the rent. They can only do like 8%, but they, I lived in Arcadia. I had like a back house. So from the front of our street, you could see like 1 or 2 houses. You couldn't see the back house. And technically our driveway, there was an alley in the back, and our driveway was off that alley. So I didn't get all the friendly up front, hey, I dealt with that alley, and the LA alleys are just, craziness. And that's kind of why they liked me there, because there was like a woman in the middle. There was a woman and her kid, and up front there was this guy who was elderly and older and had problems. So I kind of, had to watch. And I had 2 dogs, so that kind of. But yeah, they people are gonna, again, if you're thinking about moving to Los Angeles or Hollywood and you got to get a room, now there's like bunk beds. They'll have a house. There'll be like 4 to 8 people sleeping in bunk beds. It's expensive, but anywhere you're at, they have rule like no smoking, overnight guests. You can't use the kitchen. And I've had roommates where they didn't last that long and left dogs. Matter of fact, my dog Simon. That's how I got him. A roommate left him. She got in some problems, and life happens. And when her family showed up to get her stuff, they're like, "Well, what about the dog?" And I'd only been there like 2 months. I didn't really know. And he was mean. She wasn't feeding him right. And we're gonna take him to the pound. I was like, "No, man. I mean, he's been here a long time. He's an older dog. I can't do that. I'm a country boy from Tennessee, man. I ain't gonna let no dog. I love dogs, so I'll just." Work with him, which I did. I started feeding him and loving it. And he's now it's a great dog. I've had him like 6 years. But yeah, the roommate left him. Roommate stealing guitars, slicing your tire, like this crazy LA, you couldn't get, I was there for 24 years and people come and go. I've had people show up and move from like wherever they're at, and be full of, hey, within 3 weeks, they're just, I drive in the middle of the night. Like the last time it happened, I was like, what's that? Wonder what he's doing up at night, but I went back to sleep and I woke up and his room was cleared out. And he was like, I just didn't want to stay. I was like, well, you paid up. I could have helped. No, I just wanted to be gone, like a thief in the night. Okay. So if you're thinking about, dealing with roommate, you're gonna have to deal with a lot of you might get lucky. I've had roommates for years. We lived together for like and it was cool. And you think, well, why didn't you stay? Because a lot of times though, everybody's looking for the best area, the coolest little part, cheap. Is it rent control? Sometimes it takes a long while. And when they find a place, it's just like, hey, I was like, okay, well, I've been the roommate where I rent a room in like a bigger house where there's like 5 of us, and people are eating your food and, stealing your soap. That's just going to happen, in your room, digging around like, what, I would put locks. I would actually I would go to the hardware store and get another doorknob and lock it my own key, just to keep my stuff safe. Again, you're out and doing your stuff, whatever. But I've had a lot of good roommates also. I've had, when I was in my art mode and doing a lot of shows, I just lived with artists. And again, it was kind of a party mentality, but not too much. It wasn't like we were raging. We were just always like barbecuing, and there's beer and there's people showing up, all day long, all night long, And I'd go in my room. I could see in the lights. I could see like the shadow of the people walking through the crack of the door. I've been in there sleeping because I have to get up, and I've always had to have a job. I've always had a side hustle, but in 2010 to like 2016, I just taught vocal lessons. And then before then, I might get like, you could get pick up job. Like I used to, roadie and load out at the Roxy, working at Third Encore. And just, I had all these kind of, because I wanted to keep some time so I could do my creative stuff. So couldn't do like a 9 to 5. But I had to work. I worked in art galleries. I worked in this. I did this. I was a microphone guy, a salesman on Hollywood Boulevard. I always had kind of I couldn't, again, I'm an artist. But yeah, I've always had to work. So I'm away from home. And that's a lot of times when things happen. Even the friendly roommates that I had that I like, every once in a while I would do something. I had one that I got home and the house was smelling like chemicals. And I look at my door and I go, "What did you do?" "Oh, I took the liberty of painting your door." I was like, "Why does it smell?" And he goes, and I was like, "Dude, this is exterior paint, like this shiny pine green. Like, why didn't you paint your door?" And I was like, "Let's take it off. You got to take it off and put it outside. We never put it back on." Or did we? Did we put another door? I don't even remember. But that kind of stuff, you're not even there. I took the liberty to paint your door. Like, why didn't you paint your door? And why did you use outdoor paint? Well, it was outside. I was bored. Yeah, I'd come home, and this is the only in Los Angeles would this happen. I'd be out doing my thing, come back, and there would be some kind of shit going on. Not all the time, but certain roommates were at it a lot more. Again, I'm that kind of roommate where I show up with food. "Hey, I brought home food. Yeah, it's cool. We got beer. I've had roommates too. "Hey, I just bought a big piece of salmon. Will you cook it, Charlie?" Like, yeah. I've taught people to cook. Again, I've taught people to do laundry. I mean, I've taught people guitar. Like, I'm open to helping people out. And also, I've got a little bit of. There's certain things I won't budge an inch on, but there's other things that I'm empathetic about. I understand. I've been there. I'll help, and my belief says I have to. My faith. I have to do. It's easier to do the right thing. In my humble opinion, it's easier to be cool and do the right stuff, and not just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because I can, I woke up in a bad mood and I can rant like a madman and blame people for all this and be passive aggressive, doesn't mean I should do that. I've learned to shift my mind. So even if we all wake up, feeling, you might be, "Hey, it's great that night." Wake up in the morning, and it's, I've learned to shift my thoughts and go into a happy place. Thank goodness I know how to do that. Because for a while, in my 20s, I didn't know how to do that. I mean, a little bit, but I didn't know I would go down that road. A lot of times you're hungover or dehydrated. So but sometimes it'd get lonely if you're living in an apartment in Los Angeles. You're surrounded by all these people, but then besides my dog, it got lonely. Again, I date, but sometimes it's better to have a roommate. And don't get me wrong, I've came home and some of my cool roommates, there was a party going on, not a big party, just people I know. And hey, there's barbecue. It's cool. But some of them, you just, I've had people that only last like a month. Like within 30 days, they would just, I can't even explain how. And they seem to act like, what? That's the only way I can live. Like they don't get there's another. Do you have to act crazy? Yeah, that's the only. And this will be a series, this LA roommate, because I'm just cracking open the can right now. I don't want to. and I'm not going to use names. I'm not going to point the finger. And I guarantee you, there's other people that I've been the crazy roommate too. I've broken stuff in the bathroom, crazy, gotten in fights and bleeding all over the place, and drunk, or just being broke. Like one roommate can pay the rent, I can't, or vice versa. We've all been, but I've never like the pace. Some people have a fat, it's almost every day where they're doing something, and again, they think that's the only way they don't think there's another option. Especially if they're drinking or, and I've tried, but I had to pull back this one time. My roommates was just blackout drunk. He was asking for help. I'm tired of living like that. You know what? He called his father, and his father was like, "Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of money. I'll help you out. Whatever. And Charlie, can you drive me to my father's place?" And I do. And I talked to his father, like, "Look, man, he needs it. Does he have insurance? I mean, can you, look at him, like he's, oh no. And then drop him off. His father drops him back off, comes in the house. He goes, "Well, his problem was he was drinking the wrong beer." And he comes in with like cases of beer. Like the dude's already, don't, more expensive beer ain't going to help the problem. That's not right. A lot of people have problems. Even with like their meds, like say they're like prescribed meds, they might be abusing it or again drinking or doing other drugs. I don't really know. Honestly, I wouldn't even go in their rooms. Say if I like my last house in Arcadia, I would literally they'd be tenants. They would rent from me, and they get the room. I'm not walking in their room. I leave people alone. I ain't going in their room. And look, when you finally do, you look around, there's like cigarette burns all over the carpet, and it's like, yeah, there goes another, deposit. I'm gonna lose my, $1,300, $1,500 deposit. Like a lot of money. A couple of roommates owe me money. A few. The one I was talking about, the worst one that had the trust fund, the drunk, he owes me a lot of money. And when he moved back in the second time, we agreed he was going to pay me monthly a little bit more than the rent and finally pay me off. He never did. In fact, I've never seen him again. And also, he claimed to have adopted my dog Simon, the one that was left. When he lived there for those 2 years, he claimed that Simon was his dog. Okay, cool. You and Simon clicked up, whatever. But then he just dropped me and Simon like bam. I remember that. Oh yeah, I'll bring Simon food. I was like, what? You don't have. He never came to see him. He's not that far. You got to walk. Never came. I never saw him again. He never. How you doing? And again, I'm doing him a favor. He was begging to move in. These people are like, oh please. At first they're nice. And I'm a kind of a charming, cool guy. I'm like, Charlie, you're that. And at first he's like, Charlie, you're one of the best friends. Man, you're so cool. Oh my God. And we do things, Mostly it was like mental problems and alcohol or drugs, where people are having the worst problem. And it gets dark out in Los Angeles. People move out there and they're just like, I've lived in buildings and had neighbors, and seen them come and go, just like and get chewed up. And you try to warn, like, no, man, you don't want to, don't, and they just get caught up. But also I've had roommates and neighbors that like got me jobs or I got them jobs. It's not all bad. Again, you want to, feel people out. If a lot of people, if they are, you can tell how people are there's certain people that will talk about what they're doing, their goals, what they like, what they're other people, I don't know if they know what they're doing, but they talk about what they don't like. And then when you say you're going to do, I would never do that. I don't, it's just like, it's constant. It's like an attack. It's like a form of verbal abuse. I mean, it's just like, what? Come on, dude. Hey, never hear them say what they want to do or what they're going to do, but claim they're like an actor or an artist and they struggle. I mean, I always help people out. I've gotten so many people art shows and I've curated these art. You would think that people, it's strange, no good deed goes unpunished kind of thing. Like, you were cool until I started making you money. Now I'm the bad guy. I mean, again, it's stupid. A lot of these people self-destruct. I mean, I just keep on doing what I'm doing. But be forewarned. Unless you've got a lot of people I knew, some people have rich families and they don't have to work and they can have apartments in West Hollywood and this, that, you know. Um, a lot of them are judgment. Again, they're hypocrites. They want to point out all this stuff. And it's like, dude, you don't even, have you even had a job? And I've had bandmates that way. I've had, like, again, roommates, you know, and like, some of them were cool. Some of them, I'm not saying everybody that was a trust fund that I knew, but there's a lot of people with trust funds that I. And quite honestly, they didn't do as well as others that came there, had to live in their car for a week or whatever. And, you know, and I've also had situations where I ended up with like one, I had an apartment for 6 years. They did like an inspection every 5, 6 years, whatever. And they come through and they're like, oh, this is an illegal dwelling. This is not, you can't live here. You got 72 hours to move out. What do you mean 72? I've been here for 6 years. Hey, this isn't zoned correctly or whatever. And the landlord's like, oh yeah, damn, I should have. Like, what? I'm not, where's my, no, not help you out. I had one sue me, like like come after me for, it wouldn't even, so I had to get a lawyer and sue him. I ended up getting money. This stupid ass. And my lawyer said, like, he didn't think that I would sue him or find a lawyer. It's LA, man. There's lawyers that will take it on what's called contingency, basically for free. Now, granted, you're going to only get like half the money, but still, you know, I had to protect myself because the reason he did that, so I couldn't use them as a reference. That's another thing. You're living with people in LA. These landlords are fine and everything's fine. You're leaving, whatever. And then they come back and not give you your deposit. You can't use them as a reference. And you've been there for 6, 7, 10 years. It sucks. And it's just not me. That's the story. Try getting a deposit. In the best of times, they'll say, hey, you can use it for your last month. You know, they're always fighting, because it's always first, last, and a deposit. I don't care what people say. A lot of times they're like, oh no, see, I've even looked at the lease and they didn't put the deposit. So I'm like, hey, they're not, if I just sign that, you know, hey, you got, oh, I forgot to, yeah, sure you did. So be forewarned. Sometimes you're going to get a cool roommate, and this is anywhere, small town USA. If you're looking for, it's not, you know, people get on people's nerves, but especially in a big city. I'm sure New York is, you know, any big, Houston, I'm sure the same, you know. But look, I love y'all. Thanks you for listening to Rant. I'm going to be doing the LA roommate. I just wanted to kind of crack it open. I'll get deeper diving down that rabbit hole, but I love y'all. Be blessed. Cheers.